First class isn't for your kind. This isn't some budget seat you lucked into. Lorraine Voss's hand came out of nowhere, her palm snapping across Ariana Cole's face with a sharp, practiced crack. Heat flared along Ariana's cheek, a clean sting meant to teach obedience. Lorraine leaned in, close enough that Ariana could smell expensive perfume curdled with contempt. "Stand there," she murmured, smiling like this was procedure. "Up here, questions aren't allowed. You follow instructions, or you're removed." Ariana's jaw tightened once, then stilled. She stood breathing evenly while the engines hummed beneath their feet, the aircraft waiting. Lorraine had no idea she'd just assaulted the woman who owned the plane she was standing on. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Ariana Cole stood in the first-class boarding line at gate C-17, her designer briefcase held close. The late afternoon sun streamed through the terminal's windows, casting long shadows across the carpeted floor. She watched as passengers ahead of her moved smoothly through the boarding process, greeted with practiced smiles and quick nods. Then it was her turn. The moment Lorraine Voss saw her, something shifted in the flight attendant's expression. A tightening around the eyes, a slight straightening of her spine. "Good afternoon," Lorraine said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I'll need to verify you're in the correct boarding zone." Ariana held out her first-class boarding pass. "Seat 2A." Lorraine made a show of examining the document, holding it up to the light as if checking for counterfeits. Meanwhile, she waved other first-class passengers through with barely a glance at their passes. "I'll also need to see your ID," Lorraine announced, loud enough for nearby passengers to turn and stare. Ariana maintained her composure as she retrieved her driver's license. The weight of curious eyes pressed against her back, exactly as Lorraine intended. She'd been through this routine before. The performance of procedure used as a tool of humiliation. "Is there a problem?" Tessa Mallory glided over, her purser's wings gleaming. She directed her question to Lorraine, not Ariana. "Just following protocol," Lorraine replied with exaggerated patience, "making sure everything's in order." Tessa turned to Ariana with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We just want to keep things calm up here. I'm sure you understand." "Of course," Ariana said evenly, though she hadn't raised her voice or shown any sign of agitation. "I always understand." After what felt like minutes, but was probably 30 seconds, Lorraine finally handed back Ariana's documents. "Everything appears to be adequate." The pause was deliberate. Ariana moved past them into the jet bridge, her heels clicking steadily against the floor. She could feel their eyes following her, assessing her tailored suit and perfectly styled hair, looking for any excuse to justify their treatment. The first-class cabin gleamed with soft leather and polished surfaces. Ariana found her seat, 2A by the window, and settled in with practiced efficiency. As other passengers filtered past, she removed her phone from her purse and opened the recording app with subtle movements. Lorraine's greeting pattern told its own story. "Welcome aboard to 1A. So lovely to see you again." To 1C. But when she passed Ariana, there was only pointed silence. The welcome drinks came next. Lorraine moved through the cabin with practiced grace, offering champagne and water with flourishing gestures. "Your usual, Mr. Peterson?" "Fresh lime. Just how you like it, Mrs. Davidson." She skipped Ariana's row entirely. When Ariana raised her hand to signal, Lorraine brushed past as if she were invisible. The flight attendant's shoulder connected with Ariana's. Not hard enough to spill anything, but definitely not an accident. "Oh, I do apologize," Lorraine said, voice honeyed with insincerity. She didn't offer to take Ariana's drink order. Ariana sat straight-backed in her seat, neither shrinking away nor rising to the bait. She kept her phone angled discreetly, recording each interaction, each oversight. each small cruelty wrapped in plausible deniability. The pre-flight routine continued around her. Jackets were hung with practiced care, though Lorraine somehow missed Ariana's outstretched garment bag. Newspapers were distributed selectively. Questions from other passengers were answered with warm professionalism, while Ariana's raised hand might as well have been invisible. Through it all, Ariana maintained her poise. She'd learned long ago that reaction was exactly what they wanted. Any excuse to paint her as difficult or disruptive. Instead, she documented every slight, every accident, every coded comment. The cabin door swung shut with a heavy thunk. As Lorraine passed Ariana's seat one more time, she murmured just loud enough for the phone to catch, "Some seats aren't meant to be shared." Ariana's finger stayed steady on the record button, her expression revealing nothing. But inside, a familiar heat built in her chest. Not the heat of shame they intended, but the slow burn of resolve. The cabin settled into pre-takeoff quiet, passengers absorbed in their phones or magazines. First class hummed with privilege and presumption, the carefully maintained illusion that some spaces belong to some people more than others. Ariana felt the weight of unspoken rules and expectations pressing against her skin, the same way it had in countless boardrooms and executive lounges before this. But she didn't break eye contact when Lorraine passed again, didn't adjust her posture to appear less noticeable, didn't try to make herself smaller to ease others' discomfort. She had earned her seat, not just the one on this plane, but every seat she'd ever occupied in rooms where people like Lorraine thought she didn't belong. The phone continued recording, capturing the subtle symphony of exclusion playing out in premium cabin service. Each moment was a data point, each interaction a piece of evidence. Ariana knew from experience that power didn't yield to anger or argument. It yielded to irrefutable proof. The plane slowly pulled back from gate C-17, engines humming to life. Through the window, Ariana watched ground crew members becoming smaller dots against the tarmac. Inside the cabin, Lorraine launched into her performance. "Good evening, everyone. Welcome aboard our premium service to Chicago." Lorraine's voice dripped with honeyed warmth as she moved through the first-class cabin. "We'll begin with our signature cocktail service momentarily," Ariana observed as Lorraine worked her way through the cabin with practiced elegance. "Mr. Davidson, your usual Manhattan?" A graceful nod. "Mrs. Peterson, still the pomegranate martini?" Another smile and murmured thanks. The service cart stopped at every row except 2A. Lorraine's eyes skipped over Ariana as if the seat were empty, her attention jumping from 1C directly to 2C. Ice clinked in crystal glasses. Sophisticated conversation hummed. The scent of fresh citrus garnishes filled the air. 10 minutes passed. Ariana's seat remained conspicuously without service, while others sipped their drinks. She kept her phone recording discreetly, capturing the pattern of selective attention. When Lorraine made a second pass through the cabin with fresh drinks, she again managed to serve everyone but Ariana. This time, though, she paused near row 2, leaning close to the passenger across the aisle. "Some people think sneaking upgrades means they deserve the same service," Lorraine stage whispered, loud enough for nearby rows to hear. "But we know better, don't we?" Ariana maintained her composure, though her fingers tightened slightly on her phone. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady and professional. "I haven't received any service yet. Could I please order a drink?" Tessa materialized almost instantly, as if she'd been hovering nearby waiting for this moment. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, directing her question to Lorraine rather than Ariana. "I thought I heard raised voices." "I simply requested beverage service," Ariana replied calmly. "My voice wasn't raised." Tessa's expression shifted into practiced concern. "Ma'am, your tone is making other passengers uncomfortable." She gestured vaguely at the surrounding seats, though no one had actually complained. "We want everyone to have a pleasant flight." Lorraine seized the opening. "Your tray table needs to be at exactly 90 degrees, she announced, reaching across to adjust Ariana's perfectly positioned table. "It's a safety requirement." Ariana glanced around the cabin. Multiple other passengers had tray tables at various angles. None were being corrected. "And those headphones," Lorraine continued, though Ariana's headphones weren't even in her ears. "The volume needs to be monitored. We've had complaints." "I haven't used them yet," Ariana pointed out quietly. "Could you please show me the specific policies you're referring to?" "Oh, and no recording of crew areas," Lorraine added, ignoring the question. "That's a federal regulation." She leaned into Ariana's space, one hand braced on the headrest, close enough that her perfume was overwhelming. "We take security very seriously up here." Several other passengers had phones out, some actively filming the sunset through windows that showed crew movement areas. Lorraine paid them no attention. "I'd be happy to comply with any official policies," Ariana said, maintaining eye contact despite Lorraine's invasive proximity. "Could you provide those in writing, along with your employee identification number?" Lorraine's smile tightened. "Are you threatening me?" "No," Ariana replied evenly. "I'm requesting documentation of the rules you're enforcing." "She's becoming confrontational," Tessa murmured to Lorraine, just loud enough to be overheard. Ariana kept her voice measured and clear. "I'm simply asking for equal service and written policies. Nothing confrontational about that." Lorraine pressed even closer, her face inches from Ariana's. "Listen here." But Ariana didn't flinch or lean back. She maintained her position, phone still recording as Lorraine invaded her space. The pattern was clear. First came the neglect, the skipped service, the ignored requests. Then the humiliation, the loud comments, the staged whispers. Now the provocation, the physical intimidation, the attempt to trigger a reaction. And when that didn't work, right on cue, came the blame. "Did you see that?" Lorraine whispered to Tessa. "She practically lunged at me." Ariana hadn't moved an inch. Her phone captured it all. The false accusation, the way Tessa nodded as if she'd witnessed something that never happened, the calculated exchange of looks between the two crew members. Lorraine straightened up and smoothed her uniform. With deliberate movements, she reached toward the front galley and made a subtle hand signal. 3 fingers drawn across her palm, a silent summons for backup. Through it all, Ariana's phone kept recording. The systematic exclusion, the coordinated gaslighting, the quiet call for reinforcements. Her expression remained neutral, her breathing steady. She'd seen this playbook before, the way power protected itself, how it turned victims into villains, but this time, every moment was being documented. The cabin air felt charged with tension. Other passengers stole glances, then quickly looked away, unwilling to witness what was unfolding. Ariana sat perfectly still, her phone continuing to capture every detail, as footsteps approached from the galley. The plane's engines grew louder as they taxied toward the runway. Ariana kept her phone steady, documenting each calculated slight, each manufactured tension. The first-class cabin had fallen into an uneasy silence, broken only by the occasional clink of ice against crystal. Tessa's heels clicked purposefully down the aisle. Her professional mask was firmly in place, but her eyes held a hint of satisfaction. Behind her walked a broad-shouldered man in plain clothes, his bearing unmistakably official. Owen Pike didn't bother hiding his prejudgment. His gaze had already convicted Ariana before he reached her row. "Ma'am," Owen said, voice clipped and authoritative. "We're getting reports you're being disruptive." Ariana maintained her composure. "I've been sitting quietly in my assigned seat, requesting standard service." "She's lying," Lorraine interrupted, her voice trembling with manufactured fear. She clutched her hands together, creating visible tremors. She's been threatening me, making demands, creating a hostile environment. Owen's stance shifted, angling himself protectively toward Lorraine. Multiple crew members have expressed concerns about your behavior. I have recordings of all our interactions, Ariana replied evenly. I'm happy to share them with your supervisor. The filming is part of the problem, Tessa interjected, her tone dripping with fake concern. Recording crew members creates a hostile work environment. It makes everyone uncomfortable. 2 rows ahead, a businessman was openly filming the sunset through his window, catching several flight attendants in the frame. Neither Tessa nor Owen spared him a glance. Could you please cite the specific regulation prohibiting passengers from recording? Ariana asked. And I'll need your badge number as well, Officer Pike. Owen's jaw tightened. That's not necessary. What's necessary is for you to comply with crew instructions. Hand over your phone for the duration of the flight. For everyone's safety, Tessa added smoothly. A middle-aged man in 3C shifted uncomfortably. Just cooperate, he muttered, loud enough to carry. Stop making trouble! Ariana noticed how Lorraine's posture straightened at the passenger's words, drawing confidence from the support. The flight attendant stepped closer to Ariana's seat, invading her personal space again. You heard the air marshal, Lorraine said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Or do you think you're above the rules, that you can just waltz in here and do whatever you want? I'm following all posted airline regulations, Ariana responded, maintaining steady eye contact. I'll be happy to comply with any documented safety protocols. Your attitude is exactly the problem, Lorraine hissed. People like you, always pushing, always demanding special treatment. I'm requesting equal treatment, Ariana corrected calmly. And documentation of the rules you're selectively enforcing. Owen moved closer, his hand extended. The phone. Now. Not without proper documentation and your badge number, Ariana said firmly, keeping her voice level despite the growing pressure around her. Lorraine's eyes flashed. She leaned in even closer, her words meant for Ariana alone. You think you're so clever with your little recording? That you belong up here with your demands and your attitude? The cabin air grew heavy with tension. Other passengers pretended to be absorbed in magazines or phones, but their furtive glances betrayed their attention to the unfolding scene. A young woman in 1D caught Ariana's eye briefly, then quickly looked away, unwilling to witness what was happening. Last warning, Owen stated flatly. Surrender the device, or face consequences. Ariana remained seated, her posture straight but non-threatening. I have the right to document my interactions when I'm being discriminated against. Discriminated? Lorraine's voice rose with theatrical offense. How dare you make such accusations? I've been nothing but professional while you've been hostile and aggressive. The recordings will show exactly who has been hostile, Ariana replied steadily. Owen reached for Ariana's phone with deliberate slowness, his authority unquestioned until now. Ariana pulled the device closer to her body, still maintaining her seated position, still controlled in every movement. Tessa touched Owen's arm lightly. We should note this resistance in the report. Already noted, Owen replied grimly, along with escalating non-compliance. The businessman who had been filming the sunset continued his recording undisturbed. A woman in 4A scrolled through her social media, phone held high. But all eyes were on Ariana's device, marked as a threat by nothing more than the truth it contained. What are you hiding in that recording? Lorraine demanded, her controlled facade cracking slightly. What lies are you planning to spread? Only what actually happened, Ariana answered. Every interaction, every selective enforcement, every attempt at provocation. Owen's hand remained extended. This is your final opportunity to comply voluntarily. I will not surrender my phone without documented cause, Ariana stated firmly. I have the right to protect myself from harassment. Lorraine's face flushed with barely contained rage. Her carefully constructed persona of professional courtesy warred with her growing frustration at Ariana's continued composure. She had expected tears, expected submission, expected the usual pattern of power asserting itself. Instead, she faced a wall of calm documentation, and her anger rose like a tide. The phone between them recorded it all. The manufactured crisis, the coordinated pressure, the selective enforcement of unnamed rules. It captured Owen's assumed authority, Tessa's enabling presence, and Lorraine's mounting fury at finding her usual tactics ineffective. Tension crackled through the first-class cabin as Lorraine invaded Ariana's personal space. The flight attendant's practiced smile had transformed into something harder, more vindictive. Owen Pike towered beside her, his presence a deliberate show of force as the plane continued its slow taxi toward the runway. "Final warning," Owen declared, his hand still extended. "Surrender the device." Ariana kept her voice steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "I need your name, badge number, and the written policy you're enforcing. I have the right to that information." Lorraine's nostrils flared. She turned toward the cabin, arms spread in a theatrical gesture. "Everyone, please note that this passenger is actively refusing crew instructions." Her voice carried to every corner, dripping with manufactured distress. "We cannot ensure your safety when someone refuses to comply." Several passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A woman clutched her pearls, though Ariana hadn't moved from her seated position. Tessa stood at the ready, nodding gravely as if Ariana represented some imminent threat. "This is becoming a security issue," Tessa announced, her tone carrying that special blend of corporate concern. "We may need to return to the gate. I am calmly requesting equal treatment and proper documentation," Ariana stated, keeping her phone steady. "Nothing more, nothing less." The businessman who'd been filming the sunset continued unbothered, his phone still raised. A teenager in 4C played a noisy game on her tablet. But Ariana's phone, recording nothing but truth, had somehow become a weapon in their eyes. "You don't get to dictate terms up here," Owen growled. "We can remove you before takeoff." Lorraine's face tightened at Ariana's continued composure. Each measured response seemed to infuriate her more than any shouting match could have. She leaned closer, her designer perfume cloying in the recycled air. "Listen here," Lorraine hissed, voice low and venomous. "I've dealt with your kind before. You come up here thinking you're entitled to special treatment." "Equal treatment," Ariana corrected quietly. "And documentation of policies. You don't get to make demands up here." Lorraine's control snapped. The slap cracked through the cabin like a gunshot. Ariana's head jerked sideways from the impact. A collective gasp rippled through the first-class section. Someone's fork clattered against fine china, the sound unnaturally loud in the shocked silence that followed. Heat bloomed across Ariana's cheek. She could taste metal where her teeth had caught the inside of her mouth. The phone trembled slightly in her grip, but she kept it recording, focused on maintaining her composure even as her pulse roared in her ears. Lorraine stumbled backward, instantly transforming into the victim. She lunged at me." Her voice shook with manufactured fear. "Did everyone see that? She tried to attack me." Owen's hand moved to his hip, though Ariana hadn't shifted from her seated position. Tessa rushed forward, positioning herself protectively beside Lorraine. "I saw everything," Tessa declared, though she'd been looking the other way. The passenger made an aggressive movement. The cabin felt charged, balanced on a knife's edge. Some passengers stared openly now, their phones discreetly recording. Others buried their faces in magazines, unwilling to witness what was happening. The teenager in 4C had finally looked up from her game, mouth open in shock. Ariana drew a careful breath, calling on years of boardroom experience to keep her voice steady. She pressed her fingers gently to her burning cheek, feeling the heat of the impact. Her eyes never left Lorraine's face as she spoke two quiet words. Ice. Now. The simple request seemed to throw Lorraine more than any reaction she'd anticipated. She stood frozen, her performance derailed by Ariana's continued composure. The flight attendant's hands fluttered uncertainly, her script suddenly useless in the face of such controlled dignity. With deliberate movements, Ariana reached for her phone. Not to stop recording, but to make a call. Her fingers moved across the screen with precise purpose, each tap echoing in the tense silence. "What are you doing?" Owen demanded, taking a step closer. "I told you to surrender that device." Ariana didn't acknowledge him. She simply held the phone to her ear, waiting as it rang. Her other hand remained pressed against her cheek, the skin hot beneath her cool fingers. Lorraine's facade cracked further. "You can't make calls during taxi. That's a federal—" "Hello, Rhea?" Ariana's voice cut through Lorraine's protests, calm and clear. The cabin seemed to hold its breath, sensing something shifting in the air. "This is Ariana Cole. I need you to check something for me. This aircraft," Ariana spoke softly into her phone, "tail number November 734, Charlie Alpha. I need you to freeze the departure. Now." Her voice remained steady despite the throbbing in her cheek. Lorraine hovered nearby, her earlier bravado flickering with the first hints of uncertainty. Owen Pike's hand still rested on his hip, but something in Ariana's tone made him hesitate. "Yes, Rhea. Full stop. And I want security at the forward door in 10 minutes. Ariana ended the call, letting the phone rest in her lap, still recording. The cabin hummed with tense whispers. A businessman checked his watch, irritated by the delay. The teenager who'd witnessed the slap kept glancing between Ariana and Lorraine, sensing the power dynamic shifting, but unable to understand how. In the cockpit, Captain Wade Halprin frowned at the urgent message lighting up his screen. "Stop. Do not depart. Hold position." His hand moved instinctively to the brakes, years of training overriding confusion. The massive aircraft shuddered to a halt on the taxiway. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tessa's voice crackled over the intercom, strain bleeding through her professional tone. "We're experiencing a slight delay. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Lorraine's composure cracked further. She lunged for Ariana's phone, manicured nails grasping. "That's enough! You're interfering with flight operations." Owen stepped between them, more to contain the situation than protect Ariana. "Ma'am, don't make this worse for yourself." His eyes darted between Ariana and the cockpit door, uncertainty creeping into his authoritative stance. Passengers twisted in their seats, recording snippets on their phones. The cabin buzzed with speculation. A gray-haired woman in 3F caught Ariana's eye and gave her a slight nod, jotting something in a small notebook. Minutes ticked by. Lorraine paced the aisle, whispering urgently with Tessa. Owen maintained his position, though his earlier confidence had evaporated. Through the windows, emergency lights flickered as airport vehicles approached. The forward door opened with a pneumatic hiss. 2 airport security officers stepped aboard, followed by a man whose expensive suit couldn't hide his fury. Grant Whitaker, CEO of the airline, stormed down the aisle like he owned it. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, voice sharp with executive authority. "Who dared to—" Ariana rose from her seat, smooth and unhurried. The overhead lights caught the red mark on her cheek, where Lorraine had struck her. "Good evening, Mr. Whitaker. I'm Ariana Cole." Grant's face drained of color. His mouth opened, closed, opened again as recognition hit. Behind him, Lorraine's expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror. "For those unfamiliar," Ariana continued, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed cabin. "I'm the majority owner of Cole Aeronautics Leasing. This aircraft, along with 14 others in your fleet, belongs to my company." She touched her cheek lightly. "And I've just been assaulted by your senior flight attendant while your air marshal watched." The teenager in 4C whispered, "Holy shit," before her mother could shush her. Grant's jaw clenched as he processed the implications. This wasn't just a passenger complaint anymore. This was the silent investor who held his airline's fate in her hands. "Ms. Cole," he attempted, switching to damage control mode, "I deeply apologize for any misunderstanding." There was no misunderstanding. Ariana's voice cut through his platitudes. She turned to address the security officers. "I want these three removed from duty immediately. Lorraine Voss, Tessa Mallory, and Owen Pike. Collect their credentials and escort them off my aircraft." "You can't," Lorraine started, but Grant silenced her with a sharp gesture. "Do it," he ordered through gritted teeth. The security officers moved efficiently, gathering badges and IDs. Owen surrendered his credentials without protest, his authority evaporating. Tessa's hands shook as she unpinned her wings. Lorraine looked like she might resist until Grant's glare pinned her in place. "Captain," Ariana called toward the cockpit, "this flight is delayed until I determine otherwise. Please inform operations." Wade Halperin's voice crackled back, professional despite the tension. "Understood, Ms. Cole. Holding position." Passengers murmured and shifted, some angry about the delay, others riveted by the drama unfolding. The gray-haired woman continued taking notes, her pen scratching quietly against paper. Grant stepped closer to Ariana, dropping his voice to a venomous whisper. "You're making a serious mistake. This isn't just about one flight attendant anymore." "No," Ariana agreed softly. "It's about systemic abuse protected by corporate policy. It's about passengers being humiliated while your staff watches. It's about consequences." "You have no idea what you're starting," Grant hissed. "You just declared war on an airline with a billion-dollar PR department and every reason to bury you." Ariana met his gaze steadily, her phone still recording every word. "No, Mr. Whitaker. You declared war the moment you created a culture where your staff felt entitled to assault passengers without consequences." She gestured to her marked cheek. "I'm just providing the evidence." Security finished collecting credentials. Lorraine, Tessa, and Owen were escorted toward the door, their departure witnessed by dozens of phone cameras. The cabin remained suspended in tense silence, waiting to see what would happen next. The private operations lounge hummed with tense energy. Ariana sat in a high-backed leather chair, holding an ice pack to her cheek, while fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the room. Her phone lay on the glass table before her, backed up and secured. The recording was safe. The door burst open, and Imani Cole strode in, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Her tailored suit and determined expression marked her as both attorney and protective sister. She made a beeline for Ariana, ignoring the cluster of airline executives hovering nearby. "Let me see," Imani demanded, gently tilting Ariana's face to examine the reddened skin. Her eyes narrowed. "Photos? Already taken. Medical report coming?" Ariana's voice remained steady. "Rhea has copies." Grant Whitaker cleared his throat, flanked by two men in expensive suits and a woman clutching a tablet. "Miss C. Cole, if we could speak privately." "Anything you need to say can be said in front of my counsel," Ariana replied. The woman with the tablet stepped forward. "We want to express our deepest regrets for this unfortunate incident. The airline is prepared to make this right." She slid a document across the table. "A private apology from Mr. Whitaker, full compensation for any distress, and, of course, a standard confidentiality agreement." Imani picked up the paper, eyebrows rising at the figure. That's quite an offer for an unfortunate incident. It's hush money, Ariana said flatly. The answer is no. Grant leaned forward, his charm practiced but strained. Ms. Cole, surely we can handle this professionally, discreetly. Think of the broader implications. You mean think of your stock price? Ariana's voice carried quiet steel. Or the jobs you'll threaten if I don't play along? Jobs that could be affected by hasty actions, Grant pressed. Thousands of families depend on— Don't you dare. Ariana's words cut through his manipulation. Don't pretend this is about protecting workers when you've created a culture that enables abuse. A subtle knock interrupted them. Ruth Delgado, the gray-haired woman from the flight, stood in the doorway. Her sensible shoes and weathered notebook spoke of someone who'd seen corporate theater before. "Excuse me," Ruth said, her voice gentle but firm. "Ms. Cole, could I have a moment?" Grant's legal team moved to intercept, but Ariana nodded. "Please, come in." Ruth approached, ignoring the executive's pointed stares. She placed a business card on the table. "I was in 3F. I saw everything, from the first verification check to the slap. 23 years as a labor investigator taught me to take good notes." She tapped her notebook. "Times, names, exact quotes. I'll testify if needed." One of the lawyers stepped forward. "Ma'am, this is a private meeting." "Yes," Ruth agreed mildly. "And I'm a private citizen who witnessed assault and discrimination. Shall I share my notes with the press instead?" The room tensed. Grant's smile turned brittle. "Ms. Delgado, I'm sure we can discuss your concerns." "My concern," Ruth interrupted, "is that I've watched this pattern for decades. The victim gets isolated, pressured, offered money to forget their dignity." She met Ariana's eyes. "Don't let them bury this." Captain Wade Halpern appeared in the doorway next, still in uniform. "Ms. Cole, the aircraft is secured. All logs preserved." He shifted uncomfortably. "Though I've already received calls from operations about procedural reviews." "They're moving fast," Imani murmured. Ariana turned to Rhea, who stood quietly by the door. "Secure all crew rosters, onboard reports, and communication logs before they can be updated. Full chain of custody." Rhea nodded and stepped out, already on her phone. Grant watched her go, jaw tightening. "This isn't necessary," he tried again. "We can find a solution that works for everyone." "You mean works for you," Ariana corrected. "But this isn't about one flight attendant or one airline CEO. It's about every passenger who's been humiliated, every worker who's been forced to enable abuse, every incident buried under NDAs and corporate pressure." The PR woman attempted damage control. "We take all allegations seriously." "Then you won't mind when I take them seriously too," Ariana replied. "Publicly." Grant's mask finally cracked. "You're making a mistake. This won't end well." "It already didn't end well," Imani shot back. "The moment your employee decided my sister didn't belong in first class." Ruth stood quietly, her presence a reminder that witnesses couldn't be erased. Captain Halpern lingered by the door, caught between protocol and conscience. The legal team shuffled papers, trying to rebuild their strategy. Ariana rose, Imani at her side. She handed the ice pack to the PR woman with careful courtesy. "Thank you for your offer. I decline." "Ms. Cole," Grant called as she reached the door. "Think carefully about your next move. Some battles aren't worth fighting." Ariana paused, her dignity intact despite the mark on her cheek. "That's exactly why they need to be fought." She left the lounge with Imani, Ruth's card secure in her pocket, and her phone's evidence safely backed up. Behind her, Grant watched through the glass walls, his reflection ghosted against the darkening sky. The city lights twinkled through floor-to-ceiling windows of Ariana's hotel suite, casting a soft glow across the room. Imani sat cross-legged on the plush sofa, her laptop balanced on her knees, while Ariana methodically created encrypted backups of her phone's contents. "They're moving faster than I expected," Imani said, scrolling through her tablet. "Social media's already lighting up." Ariana glanced up from her work. "How bad?" "Bad enough." Imani turned her screen. A company bulletin marked Internal Confidential filled the display. Someone had leaked it to 3 different aviation blogs within the hour. Ariana leaned in to read, "Incident Report, Flight 23-17, Subject, Passenger Removal, Safety Concern. Primary Reporting Officer, Air Marshal Owen Pike. Supporting Statements, Senior FAL Voss, Purser T. Mallory, passenger, exhibited signs of intoxication at boarding. Became combative when asked to verify seating assignment. Made threatening statements to crew members. Attempted to film security-sensitive areas. Used position of influence to interfere with flight operations." "They're painting quite a picture," Ariana said, her voice controlled. "It gets worse." Imani opened another tab. Aviation experts who weren't within 100 miles of that flight are already weighing in. The comments scrolled past. "Sources say she'd been drinking in the lounge. Typical entitled behavior. Threatening the crew is never acceptable. Using her company to bully workers." Ariana's phone buzzed. Another message from her board. The third in an hour. This one from Harrison Wells, head of risk management. "Grant Whitaker calling emergency investor meeting tomorrow. Need you to de-escalate before this affects contracts. They're trying to make you toxic before the truth comes out," Imani observed. "Classic containment strategy. They think if they smear me enough, no one will believe the recording." Ariana's fingers moved steadily across her keyboard, creating another backup. Imani nodded. "Fear makes people sloppy. They're throwing everything at once, hoping something sticks." She paused, lawyer mind working. "We need to be smarter, strategic. Release evidence in a controlled timeline that dismantles each lie systematically." "No emotional responses," Ariana agreed. "Just facts they can't dodge." Her phone lit up with a text from Ruth Delgado. "Airline rep just called. Offered premium travel benefits and stressed importance of passenger privacy. Told them I don't need vouchers to tell the truth. Watch your back. They're sanitizing everything they can reach." "Smart woman," Imani commented, reading over Ariana's shoulder. "Most witnesses would grab the perks and run." "Most witnesses haven't spent decades watching corporations bury inconvenient truths." Ariana forwarded Ruth's message to their documentation file. A notification popped up on Imani's screen. Another aviation blog running with the story. This one had a photo of Ariana from a previous press event, carefully selected to make her look aggressive. The headline blazed, "Power play at 30,000 feet. Investor threatens airline crew." Imani's jaw tightened. "They're trying to flip it completely, make you the attacker, Lorraine the victim, and Grant the noble protector of his employees." Speaking of employees, Ariana opened her email. 3 different flight attendants from other crews just reached out. They've seen similar behavior from Lorraine before, but complaints disappeared into HR. "Document everything," Imani advised. "Names, dates, patterns. Build the bigger picture." Ariana's board was calling again. She let it go to voicemail, focusing on her work. The recording needed to be everywhere, secured in multiple formats, multiple locations, impossible to erase. "Look at this," Imani said suddenly. She turned her laptop to show a business news site. "They're spinning the aircraft hold as reckless interference with operations, claiming you endangered passengers by stopping a safe departure. Convenient how they skipped the part where their senior flight attendant assaulted someone," Ariana replied dryly. The TV mounted on the wall caught their attention as a familiar face appeared. Grant Whitaker himself, perfectly composed in a crisis interview. "We take all passenger concerns seriously," he was saying, voice grave with rehearsed sincerity. But we also have strict protocols about filming crew members and interfering with flight operations. Our first priority must always be safety. Imani muted the sound. He's good. Hits all the right notes. Safety, procedures, protecting his people. Makes it sound like you were the security threat. He's had practice, Ariana noted. I wonder how many other incidents he's buried under safety protocols. Her phone buzzed again. Ruth sending screenshots of airline employees suddenly flooding her social media. Some friendly, some not so friendly. They found me fast, she wrote. Pressure's building. Ariana stared at the muted TV, where Grant was still speaking, probably spinning more artful lies. The mark on her cheek had faded to a dull ache, but the truth of what happened burned clearer than ever. She turned to Imani. Tomorrow, we go on record, on our terms. They'll try to shout us down, Imani warned. Drown facts in noise. Let them try. Ariana's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Some things are too clear to blur. The city lights kept twinkling outside, indifferent to the battle brewing in the glass tower. On Imani's screen, another notification popped up. More anonymous sources spreading their version of events. But Ariana stayed focused, methodical, backing up truth that no amount of corporate spin could erase. Morning sunlight streamed through the wall-to-wall windows of Cole Aeronautics Leasing's executive floor. Ariana's heels clicked purposefully across polished marble as she approached the boardroom, Rhea Sloan falling into step beside her with a thick folder of security reports. They're all here, Rhea murmured, including Thomas Bradford. Ariana's eyebrow lifted slightly. Bradford rarely left his Florida estate for anything less than catastrophe. His presence meant the board saw this as an existential threat. Through the glass walls, she could see them waiting, 12 faces set in various shades of concern and disapproval. These were people who measured success in silent profits, not public stands. Ariana straightened her jacket and pushed through the heavy door. Conversations hushed, coffee cups lowered. Every eye tracked her progress to the head of the long mahogany table. "Good morning," she said, voice clear and steady. "I assume you've all seen the news." Bradford spoke first, his weathered face creased with worry. "This isn't just news anymore, Ariana. It's becoming a liability nightmare. 4 major clients called this morning," Patricia Chen added, tapping her tablet. "They're concerned about operational stability. And the airline's legal team is hinting at breach of contract," Michael Dawson cut in. "They're claiming you abused lessor authority for personal grievance." Ariana set her phone on the table. "Before we continue, I'd like you to hear something." She pressed play. Lorraine's voice filled the room, syrupy sweet and razor sharp. "I'll need to verify you're in the correct cabin. Some people confuse access with entitlement." The recording continued. Tessa's staged wellness check. Owen's threatening tone, the manufactured crisis building step by step. Then came the sharp crack of the slap. Several board members flinched. Sandra Reeves, usually quick to advocate caution, pressed her lips together in clear disgust. "That's assault," Rhea stated flatly, laying out photos of Ariana's reddened cheek taken immediately after the incident. Documented, witnessed, and followed by attempted cover-up. "No one's denying it was inappropriate," Bradford said carefully. "But we have to consider the bigger picture. This company services over 200 aircraft across 30 airlines. We can't afford to be seen taking sides in passenger disputes." "Taking sides?" Ariana's voice remained measured. "Is that what we're calling a response to documented assault now?" "The optics," Dawson began. "The optics," Ariana cut in, "are exactly what they're counting on. Our neutrality is their shield." She stood, walking slowly around the table. "Every time we choose not to see discrimination, we help normalize it. Every time we prioritize quiet over right, we become part of the machine that protects abusers." This isn't about philosophy, Bradford countered. It's about protecting our contracts, our employees, our stability. Is it stable to let clients think they can assault the CEO without consequences? Ariana asked. Is it protecting employees to show them we'll abandon principles for profit? She laid out her proposal, a measured response that would keep aircraft flying while implementing strict accountability measures, independent oversight of crew conduct, mandatory anti-discrimination training, clear consequences for documented abuse. We can support both justice and jobs, she concluded, but we cannot support injustice in the name of peace. The room fell silent. Sandra Reeves cleared her throat. What exactly are you asking for? Authority to proceed with reform requirements as part of our continued leasing agreement. Backing when they try to paint this as personal revenge. And resources to protect our systems when they retaliate. More silence. Board members exchanged glances. Finally, Bradford spoke. We'll grant conditional authority, but, he raised a finger, you cannot endanger the overall deal. The moment this threatens broader operations, we intervene. It wasn't full support. It was permission with a leash. But it was enough to start. The board voted, 7 in favor, 5 opposed. As members filed out, Imani pulled Ariana aside. You know what this means, she said quietly. They'll replace you the second public opinion turns. The board's backing only lasts as long as the optics work in their favor. Ariana nodded. I know the risk. And you're still going forward? Some things matter more than keeping power. Ariana gathered her materials. Better to lose a position doing right than keep it by enabling wrong. They walked out together, Rhea falling into step. In the elegant hallway, beneath art worth millions, Ariana turned to her security chief. They'll come for our systems next, she said. Prepare for audits, hacks, threats, anything to destabilize our position. Rhea nodded grimly. Already on it. I've got teams running penetration tests and hardening our networks. They won't find us easy to crack. Through the windows, morning sun painted the city gold. Somewhere out there, Grant Whitaker was probably planning his next move, confident that corporate pressure would make Ariana fold like so many others before her. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The maintenance hangar stretched vast and cavernous, filled with the sharp scent of jet fuel and metal. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Ariana followed Hector Ruiz past rows of toolboxes and partially dismantled engines. Workers glanced up from their tasks, their expressions a mix of curiosity and wariness. A wall-mounted TV in the break area played Grant Whitaker's press statement on mute, closed captions scrolling beneath his practiced, concerned expression. Billionaire investor threatens thousands of jobs. Personal vendetta puts airline at risk. Hector gestured to a cluster of empty chairs. They've been playing this on loop all morning. 2 mechanics nearby shot dark looks in Ariana's direction before turning back to their work. She noted their fear, their anger. All of it carefully cultivated by Grant's media strategy. How many people work this shift? Ariana asked, keeping her voice low. About 60 in maintenance alone, Hector replied. 3 shifts total, plus support staff. Nearly 200 families depending on this hangar. A young mechanic wiped his hands on a rag and approached cautiously. His name tag read, Martinez. Ms. Cole? His voice wavered slightly. Is it true you're pulling our planes? Before Ariana could answer, another worker called out, My sister's got 3 kids. This job's all she's got. More faces turned toward them, work temporarily forgotten. The fear in the hangar was palpable. Fear Grant had weaponized. Ariana stood, making sure everyone could see her. I'm not here to destroy your livelihoods. I'm here because the people running this airline think they can abuse passengers, threaten workers, and hide behind your jobs as shields. Easy to say when you're worth millions, someone muttered. You're right, Ariana acknowledged, surprising the speaker. I have resources now, but I grew up watching my mother work 2 jobs to keep us fed. I know what it means to fear a paycheck disappearing. Hector stepped forward. The company's using that fear right now. They're counting on it to keep everyone quiet, to make Ms. Cole back down. Financing falls through, we all lose, an older mechanic said. That's just facts. Ariana moved closer to the group, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. Let me be clear about my intentions. The planes stay. The jobs stay. But Grant Whitaker and his enabling executives, they need to go. She outlined her plan, point by point. First, we preserve all current leases, protecting operations and jobs. Second, we require leadership changes at the top, not to punish, but to reform. Third, we implement independent oversight for passenger rights and worker protections. No more using policy as a weapon. The workers exchanged glances, hope warring with skepticism. And how do we know you'll stick to that? Martinez asked. Because I'm putting it in writing, Ariana replied. Legal guarantees, not just promises. Binding commitments that protect workers during any transition. Hector nodded slowly. She's already shared the draft agreements with union leadership. They're solid. A heavy silence fell. Then a mechanic in the back, older, gray-haired, cleared his throat. Last night, he said quietly, I saw Thompson from corporate down here. He was asking about camera footage from that flight. Said it needed to disappear for system maintenance. Ariana kept her expression neutral, though her pulse quickened. Did you see what happened to it? The mechanic shook his head. Don't want to know. Got kids in college. He glanced nervously at the others. But if someone were to look into it... I understand, Ariana said. She pulled out a business card and handed it to Hector. This is my sister Imani's contact information. She's a civil rights attorney. Anyone who has information about the footage, about other incidents, about anything, can reach her securely. She knows how to protect sources. Hector tucked the card away carefully. I'll make sure it gets to the right people. More workers drifted closer, the hostility in their faces softening as they realized Ariana wasn't the enemy Grant had painted her to be. What do you need from us? Martinez asked. Right now, keep doing your jobs. Keep these planes safe. Document everything unusual you see, but don't take risks. When the time comes to speak up, we'll make sure you're protected. A radio crackled with maintenance requests. The spell broke as workers returned to their tasks, but the atmosphere had shifted. There was still fear, but now there was also possibility. As Ariana turned to leave, her phone buzzed. The screen displayed an urgent notice. Regulatory compliance audit. Immediate action required. 3 different oversight agencies had simultaneously launched routine reviews of Cole Aeronautics Leasing's operations. Didn't take them long, Hector observed, reading over her shoulder. No, Ariana agreed. But we were ready for this. She'd had Rhea triple-check every certification, every inspection record, every piece of documentation weeks ago. Grant's attempt to rattle her would find no cracks to exploit. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Cole Aeronautics' war room, casting long shadows across the sleek conference table. 3 laptops sat open, surrounded by stacks of legal documents and regulatory filings. Ariana Cole stood at the head of the table, watching multiple news feeds play simultaneously on the wall-mounted screens. Rhea Sloan typed rapidly on her tablet, coordinating with their digital security team. All backup servers are secured. They can audit, but they can't accidentally delete anything. Good. Ariana picked up a thick legal brief Imani had prepared. Time to show them what we have. Imani Cole adjusted her glasses, reviewing their media strategy one final time. Remember, we release exactly what we discussed. Nothing more. Let them react to this piece first. Ariana nodded and pressed send on the carefully prepared email. Within minutes, their edited video clip appeared across social media platforms. The footage was crystal clear. Lorraine's aggressive posturing, Owen's intimidation, and the shocking moment of the slap, all preceded by documented instances of targeted neglect. The attached timeline laid out each coincidental skipped service, each staged intervention. Each moment Ariana had calmly requested equal treatment only to be labeled disruptive. The evidence was impossible to dismiss. "Here we go," Rhea said, monitoring the response. News alerts began pinging rapid fire across their screens. The first major sponsor, a luxury hotel chain, called the airline's PR department, demanding answers. Within an hour, 3 more followed. The airline's customer service lines lit up with passengers sharing their own stories of discriminatory treatment. Imani scrolled through her phone. Twitter's exploding. The clip's been shared over 50,000 times already. The airline's stock price began to dip. By mid-morning, their board of directors released an emergency statement announcing an independent investigation into the incident and broader service policies. Grant Whitaker appeared on CNBC, his expression carefully crafted to show grave concern. "We take these allegations extremely seriously," he said, hands clasped on the desk. "Our airline has always prided itself on exemplary service for all passengers." Ariana's phone buzzed with a series of text messages from airline workers, maintenance crew, gate agents, flight attendants. "Thank you," they wrote. Finally, someone stood up to them. "They're moving fast," Rhea noted, as another alert popped up. The airline had just released a series of personnel announcements. Lorraine Voss, terminated effective immediately. Owen Pike, placed on administrative leave pending review. Tessa Mallory, voluntary resignation for personal reasons. "Look at the language," Ariana said, highlighting key phrases in Grant's statement. "Isolated incident. Not reflective of our values. Swift action taken." Imani leaned forward, seeing what her sister saw. No mention of the deleted security footage. Nothing about systematic discrimination. Not a word about changing policies. "They're offering sacrificial lambs," Rhea agreed, hoping that will be enough. On screen, Grant continued his damage control tour, each interview hitting the same careful points. Regret without admission, action without reform, concern without commitment. Notice he keeps saying alleged incident, even though it's on video? Ariana traced the pattern in his responses. He's still trying to craft deniability. A breaking news alert flashed. The airline's board had approved emergency funds for enhanced crew training and passenger experience improvements. The stock price began to stabilize. "People are celebrating on social media," Rhea reported. "They think justice was served because heads rolled." Imani pulled up their full evidence timeline. "They don't realize how much deeper this goes. The tampered records, the pressure on witnesses, the systematic cover-ups. Grant's betting will stop here," Ariana said, studying the CEO's practiced smile on screen. "That we'll be satisfied with a few firings and some PR promises." The war room fell quiet, except for the murmur of news coverage. Ariana's phone kept buzzing with congratulatory messages, but she set it aside. Instead, she focused on Grant's latest statement, analyzing every calculated word choice, every strategic omission. No acknowledgement of evidence being deleted, no mention of Ruth Delgado's suspicious accident, no commitment to specific policy changes or independent oversight. Just vague promises wrapped in corporate language, designed to sound meaningful while changing nothing. "Your sister's right," Rhea said, watching Ariana's focused expression. "This isn't over." "Most people would take the win," Imani observed, but her tone made it clear she agreed with pushing forward. 3 people lost their jobs. The public satisfied. "The public sees what Grant wants them to see," Ariana replied. "A neat, contained incident with clear villains and swift punishment. Problem solved. Everyone move on. She pulled up footage from the maintenance hangar meeting. Workers describing years of pressure to stay quiet. Fear used as a management tool. Incident reports that disappeared. A culture built on silencing victims and protecting power. You got them to flinch, Imani said, studying the stack of evidence they hadn't yet released. Ariana's gaze remained fixed on Grant's smiling face, as he assured another interviewer that the situation has been resolved. Now, watch him swing, she replied. Late afternoon sun slanted through the tinted windows of Grant Whitaker's corner office at Alliance Airlines headquarters. He sat behind his mahogany desk, surrounded by a team of attorneys who spoke in careful, measured tones about mitigating exposure and aggressive defense strategy. Make it hurt, Grant instructed, signing the lawsuit documents with practiced flourish. I want every possible angle of pressure. Across town, Ariana's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Board members called one after another, their voices rising with panic as Alliance's counterattack unfolded. They're saying you endangered passenger safety, board member Thompson practically shouted. That stopping that plane was reckless interference with federal aviation protocols. Rhea burst into Ariana's office, tablet in hand. They just filed in federal court. It's not just about the taxi incident. They're claiming broader pattern of hostile business practices and requesting emergency injunctive relief. Ariana's private line lit up. Marcus Chen, head of regulatory compliance. We've got surprise inspectors at 3 maintenance facilities. They're citing anonymous safety complaints about our leased aircraft. The pressure mounted by the minute. Alliance's legal team had crafted a masterful trap. They painted Ariana's resistance to abuse as dangerous overreach, transforming her documentation of discrimination into evidence of vindictive interference. The FAA just grounded 6 of our planes pending safety review, Rhea reported grimly. All of them on Alliance routes. On TV, carefully selected aviation experts discussed the unprecedented risks of an aircraft lessor manipulating flight operations over personal grievances. The ticker showed Alliance's stock recovering as investors approved of their strong response to contract violations. Imani paced the office, analyzing the legal filing. This is coordinated warfare. They're not just attacking you. They're threatening the whole company's credibility with regulators. The strategy was brutally effective. Within hours, worried calls poured in from other airline clients. The board scheduled an emergency session. Employees whispered about job security. Everything Ariana had built seemed suddenly fragile. Issue a statement walking this back, board member Phillips demanded. Say it was a misunderstanding, that you overreacted. Something, anything, to stop this bleeding. You want me to lie, Ariana said flatly. To pretend discrimination is acceptable as long as it's profitable. I want you to be practical, Phillips shot back. This isn't just about you anymore. People's livelihoods are at stake. Grant's PR machine worked overtime, positioning him as the responsible adult, protecting aviation infrastructure from a billionaire's tantrum. Each hour brought fresh headlines questioning Ariana's judgment and stability. Look at these job numbers they're throwing around, Rhea said, showing Ariana the latest press coverage. 10,000 routes at risk. Holiday travel chaos looms. They're manufacturing panic to force compliance. Ariana's phone buzzed again. Ruth Delgado's number. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. Someone came to my house, Ruth said quietly. 2 men, said they were airline security. Asked about my supposed testimony. Wanted to know what evidence I had. Ariana's hand tightened on the phone. Did they threaten you? Not directly, just implications. About pension complications, travel privileges. They mentioned my grandchildren by name. Ruth paused. And I think my phone's tapped. There's clicking, strange noises. I'm sending security to you right now, Ariana said, signaling Rhea. Don't talk to anyone else. Don't sign anything. But the damage was spreading. Other witnesses grew quiet, suddenly unsure of details they'd been certain about hours earlier. The carefully documented pattern of abuse began to blur, as fear did its work. Rhea deployed a protection team to Ruth's house, but reported more concerning news. Similar intimidation visits to other passengers who'd spoken up. Grant's machine was methodically erasing proof. The board called again, more insistent. Step aside temporarily, they urged. Let us handle this through normal channels. You're too close to it. Normal channels protect abusers, Ariana replied. That's why Lorraine felt safe enough to slap me. Then we'll have to vote on removing you, Thompson warned. The company can't sustain this fight. Ariana stood at her office window, watching the sun set behind rows of hangars bearing her company's logo. Everything she'd built by refusing to accept normal injustice was now being used to force her back into line. Her phone lit up with a text from Rhea. 911. Ruth Delgado taken to Metro Hospital. Found unconscious at bottom of stairs. Accidental fall. Seconds later, another message. Her apartment was searched. Witness notes missing. Ariana pressed her forehead against the cool glass, feeling the weight of Grant's machine bearing down. He wasn't just trying to bury one incident anymore. He was systematically destroying everyone who dared to stand with her. Behind her, the TV droned on with fresh experts questioning her mental state. Her board gathered for an emergency vote. Regulators circled her company like sharks. And somewhere in a hospital, Ruth Delgado lay injured. Punishment for choosing truth over safety. The pre-dawn silence of Cole Aeronautics headquarters wrapped around Ariana and Imani like a heavy blanket. Their untouched coffee grew cold on the conference table between stacks of documents and legal briefs. The city lights twinkled beyond the windows, a constellation of artificial stars against the dark. Hector Ruiz's footsteps echoed through the empty corridor before he appeared in the doorway, clutching a worn manila envelope. His face held the weariness of someone who hadn't slept, but his eyes sparked with purpose. Ruth knew, he said without preamble, placing the envelope on the table. She'd seen this playbook before. That's why she gave me this the morning after the flight. Ariana carefully opened the seal. Inside, Ruth's precise handwriting filled several pages of hotel stationery. Times, names, exact quotes, all documented with the methodical thoroughness of a career investigator. Look at this, Imani said, pointing to a specific entry. 2 hours after the incident, Ruth noticed a man in a suit demanding access to the gate security office. She recognized him from airline publicity photos. Marcus Stewart, Grant's chief of operations. Ariana leaned forward. She overheard him say they needed any recording devices in range of the aircraft. Before, this gets worse. That's not all, Hector added. After Ruth was attacked, one of our IT specialists came to me. He's terrified, but he has proof. The airline's mandatory cabin audio archives, they tried to wipe them, but the system keeps access logs. Imani was already typing. I'm drafting emergency preservation orders. If they touched federal aviation records, that's criminal tampering. The specialist preserved everything, Hector continued. Access timestamps, deletion attempts, even the original audio files. He says Grant's team was sloppy. They didn't know about the backup servers. Ariana spread Ruth's notes across the table, building a timeline. They moved fast because they knew how bad it was. Look at the pattern. First, they tried to provoke me into reacting. When that failed, they attempted to destroy evidence. When that failed, they attacked witnesses. Classic cover-up cascade, Imani agreed. Each failure made them more desperate. But Ruth's notes give us something better than individual proof. They show coordination. This wasn't just Lorraine losing control. The whole system activated to protect itself. The IT specialist's files arrived through secure channels. Crystalline audio of Lorraine's staged wellness checks. Tessa's manufactured safety concerns. Owen's baseless accusations. Every moment preserved despite the attempt to erase it. "Listen," Ariana said, playing one clip. Lorraine's voice dripped with rehearsed concern. "Ma'am, you seem agitated. Should we be worried about your behavior?" Then another. Owen Pike declaring, "She's refusing crew instructions," while Ruth's notes showed Ariana sitting quietly, hands visible. The contrast between audio and their official story is damning, Imani observed. No wonder they tried to destroy it. Hector studied the server logs. They accessed these files at 2 a.m. the night of the incident. 3 failed deletion attempts from an executive terminal. Ariana began organizing everything into clear, sequential exhibits. "We need this presentation airtight. No room for spin." Hour by hour, they built an undeniable case. Ruth's meticulous notes provided context for every audio clip. The IT logs proved deliberate tampering. Internal emails showed the pressure campaign against witnesses. When dawn finally broke, Ariana stood at the window watching the sun paint the sky in fierce oranges and pinks. Behind her, Imani coordinated with their media team, while Hector arranged secure transport for their IT witness. "Press conference is set for noon," Imani reported. "All major networks confirmed. The airline board will be watching." "Good." Ariana turned from the window. No more private meetings. No more backroom deals. They wanted this public. Let's give them what they asked for. They spent the morning rehearsing the presentation. Every exhibit was chosen for maximum impact. Every claim was backed by multiple sources. The truth, presented plainly, would be their weapon. At precisely noon, Ariana stepped to the podium in Cole Aeronautics' main conference center. Camera lights flashed as she began speaking in that same calm, measured tone she'd maintained throughout the incident. "Today isn't about one flight attendant's actions," she opened. "It's about what happened next." She played the audio clips chronologically, letting the manipulation unfold in real time. The manufactured concern, the staged safety threats, the coordinated pressure. "But that wasn't enough," Ariana continued. "When documentation threatened their narrative, this happened." She displayed the server logs showing the deletion attempts. Then Ruth's notes about Grant's team demanding recordings. Finally, the pattern of witness intimidation that led to Ruth's accident. The room grew painfully quiet as the evidence mounted. Reporters who'd questioned Ariana's overreaction now scribbled frantically. The airline's PR team sat frozen, phones buzzing with panicked messages from their board. "This isn't just about discrimination," Ariana said. "It's about power protecting power at any cost. It's about a system that views truth itself as a threat." She revealed the subpoenas, the criminal referrals, the regulatory investigations now launching. The airline board had watched the live stream. Their response was swift. Security cameras caught the moment Grant Whitaker was escorted from headquarters, face ashen. From the podium, Ariana's voice carried the same steady strength she'd shown in seat 2A. "This is what accountability looks like," she said simply. "Not because I'm powerful, but because truth is." Morning sunlight streamed through the vast windows of the maintenance hangar, casting long shadows across the polished aircraft tails. Ariana Cole stood between Hector Ruiz and Captain Wade Halprin, watching ground crews guide planes back to their positions. The familiar scent of jet fuel and machine oil filled the air. 3 more cleared for return today, Hector reported, checking his tablet. The new oversight team signed off on all maintenance records. Clean start to finish. Captain Halprin nodded. His shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. Crew morale's up too. People are actually talking about problems instead of hiding them. Amazing what happens when you remove fear from the equation. Ariana watched a Boeing 787 taxi smoothly into position. How's the new reporting system working? Night and day difference, Hector said. Yesterday, a flight attendant flagged discriminatory behavior from a passenger. Instead of getting brushed off, she had backup within minutes. The passenger was removed, and management sent a clear message. We protect our people. Through the hangar's open doors, they could see more aircraft lined up on the tarmac. Each one represented jobs preserved, routes maintained, communities connected. But now they operated under new rules, with teeth. The charges against Lorraine came through yesterday, Captain Halprin mentioned quietly. Assault and filing false reports. FAA permanently revoked her credentials. Ariana's cheek had healed, but she touched it briefly, a reflexive gesture. And Owen Pike? Terminated effective immediately, Hector confirmed. Internal Affairs opened an investigation into his pattern of selective enforcement. They're reviewing every incident where he was called to assist with passenger conflicts. 3 other marshals came forward after he was fired, Captain Halprin added. Said he'd pressure them to target certain passengers, usually minorities, as suspicious. A ground crew member waved to Hector, who returned the greeting with easy familiarity. The tension that had gripped the workplace was dissolving, replaced by cautious optimism. Tessa Mallory tried to appeal her blacklisting, Hector continued. The Independent Review Board shut it down fast. They found emails where she coached other supervisors on how to frame passengers as disruptive while hiding discriminatory behavior. Ariana watched another plane dock smoothly. How's the interim leadership team performing? Better than expected, Captain Halprin said. The new CEO actually came up through maintenance. She understands operations from the ground up. First thing she did was implement your reforms. Passenger Rights Office with real authority, bias training led by outside experts, clear reporting channels for crew members who witness misconduct. And the whistleblower protections? Ariana asked. Hector smiled slightly. Rock solid. Retaliation attempts trigger immediate executive review and affect bonus structures. Amazing how quickly behavior changes when money's involved. They walked through the hangar, passing mechanics and crew members who nodded respectfully. No false deference, no tension, just professional acknowledgement. The investment deal closed this morning, Ariana said. Full financing with the new conditions locked in. The airline keeps its fleet, workers keep their jobs, and the old power structure stays dismantled. Speaking of positive changes, Hector pulled up another document on his tablet. The Ruth Delgado Aviation Scholarship Program? Applications are already coming in. 20 full rides for Black students entering aviation careers, maintenance, flight training, operations management. Ariana paused near a newly serviced aircraft, its paint gleaming. Ruth deserves more than just thanks for her courage. She deserves a legacy. How is she recovering? Captain Halprin asked. Better each day. The doctors say she'll make a full recovery. Ariana's voice held warm respect. I visited her yesterday. She's already talking about mentoring the first scholarship class. They reached the hangar entrance, where morning light painted the concrete in bright squares. Beyond the airfield, planes took off and landed in steady rhythm, the pulse of an industry changing from within. The passenger rights hotline logged 50 calls this week, Hector noted. Everyone properly documented, investigated, and resolved. No brush-offs, no cover-ups. And the crew? Ariana asked. They trust it now, Captain Halprin said. Yesterday, a new flight attendant reported harassment from a first-class passenger. Instead of being told to handle it quietly, she got immediate support. The passenger was removed and management backed her publicly. A fresh crew walked past, heading to their aircraft. The young flight attendant leading them smiled at Ariana. Not the plastic service smile she'd received from Lorraine, but genuine professional warmth. "Your next flight's boarding in an hour," Hector reminded her. "Same route, same seat." Ariana adjusted her laptop bag. "Time to go." They walked together through the terminal, past gates humming with normal activity. At her gate, the ground crew processed boarding passes efficiently, treating each passenger with equal attention. The young flight attendant from earlier stood at the aircraft door, greeting passengers with consistent professionalism. When Ariana approached, the attendant's welcome was natural and respectful. "Good morning, Ms. Cole. Welcome aboard." Ariana moved down the aisle to seat 2A. The cabin felt different, not because of new uniforms or procedures, but because of what was missing: the subtle tension, the performed superiority, the unspoken barriers. She settled into her seat, neither triumphant nor tentative, just steady, present, certain. The morning sun streamed through her window, catching the wing's polished surface. In its reflection, she saw not just an aircraft, but an industry learning that accountability wasn't a threat. It was a foundation. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.